The following is a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio. Want the real story behind the sound bites and headlines? Let's find the facts. Remember, it's not a conspiracy theory if it's the truth. You are not paranoid or confused. You just need to know.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Need to Know, our weekly gathering where Kip Keefer has a microphone in front of his face and says pretty much what he wants to say, talks about everything that he wants you to know. And, it's a resumption of a great love affair. Kip Keefer has never met a microphone he did not like. So, with all that preface, I hope everybody had a fantastic week and weekend. I know that a lot of folks tune in to find out perspectives and different opinions of everything that's going on in this wide world of ours. And certainly today will be no exception. We'll keep a lot of that more in kind of headline and sound bite. I got ahead of myself and mixed up my metaphors, but headline and sound bite format. But I want to tell you briefly about my weekend because I think it's a shared experience that a lot of us have. Unfortunately, to me, one of the aspects, probably the only disappointment of my weekend, are the people that I didn't see, because this was a big reunion for my class from Peachtree High School back in the day, Metro Atlanta, Georgia, Dunwoody, Georgia, to be exact. And we had our big high school reunion and saw so many great people that I literally grew up with in Atlanta. Back when Atlanta boomed in the late 60s is when my family moved there. My dad, who was with the Johnson Wax Company, Raid and Bravo and Pledge, all kinds of iconic products. He became a district manager in the new boom town of Atlanta after the Atlanta airport was built. In the early 60s, of course, Atlanta just took off, became a professional sports town, became a hub for every great concert tour, built new facilities. People came from all over the country. And our neighborhood, Dunwoody North, which was about 20 minutes from downtown Atlanta, out in DeKalb County, a little bit northeast of the city, became one of the big boom suburbs while Atlanta was growing like leaps and bounds. All the way back to the Civil War, most of the residential areas of Atlanta were right around downtown, like Decatur and the Buckhead area, the Paces Ferry area, a lot of those areas. All of a sudden, places like Chamblee and Dunwoody and Marietta became the suburbs. And our family moved there in the late 60s. And I think I've told you here on the program before, one of the greatest things I found out as an 8-year-old moving to Atlanta from Washington, D.C., already a sports fanatic at that age, I found out that my next door neighbor is the starting shortstop for the now Atlanta Braves at that time, who had just moved down the year before from Milwaukee. So, my parents came back from looking for a house in Atlanta, and I was staying with my grandmother, and they came in. I had every baseball card known to mankind, of course, and my dad kind of poked my mother and said, "Watch this." And he said, "Hey, Kip, who's the shortstop for the Atlanta Braves?" And I said, "Dennis Menke." And he said, "He's your new next door neighbor." What a thrill for a kid. I had a big league ball player next door to me. They took me under their wing. He and his wife, Jean, did not at that time have any children. They were, late 20s or whatever. Dennis was a big bonus baby from Iowa who was getting ready to go to college, and the Braves drafted him. And get ready for this. He got the biggest bonus at the time that any signee had ever gotten. That's what a prospect he was. The amount that they gave Dennis Menke in 1963 to play baseball instead of going to Iowa to college $100,000. Yes, indeed. Now that's like meal money for these guys on the road, but a $100,000 bonus baby. Dennis Menke became the Brave shortstop. Anyway, we moved next door. They were great. Cut their grass for a couple of years, took care of their dogs when they were out of town. Mrs. Menke, Jean Menke, went to, usually her tradition was to go to one game in every series. So let's say the Dodgers came in for a 3-game series, either the opening game or the second game usually. She went down there. There were seats right behind home plate, right behind the net. Best seats in the house, the family section. And I was in tow almost every one of those games for one game a series. All those years, those first 3 years we lived there with the Menkes, became kind of a little pseudo celebrity down at the Atlanta Fulton County Stadium. Met Hank Aaron and Orlando Cepeda and Cleet Boyer and all these guys. At Halloween, when the season just ended, the Menkes and Keefers, who lived in adjoining backyards that was as big as a football field out back, we had the ultimate neighborhood party, giant Halloween parties. On 4th of July, we did the same thing. Of course, a lot of times Dennis wasn't available for those because that's a big baseball day, but just these iconic gatherings. It was Americana defined. And the great thing about Dunwoody North was it was the ultimate melting pot of people from all corners of this country, because so many people relocated to Atlanta between 1966 and 1972. The population just swelled, and our neighborhood was one of the biggest and best. It was home to all kinds of celebrities. You've probably heard of Ryan Seacrest. His family moved to Dunwoody in the 1970s. You had people like Cotton Fitzsimmons, who was the head coach of the Atlanta Hawks, who had moved from St. Louis. His son Gary was a high school classmate of ours, and Gary was a phenomenal basketball player, as you might expect. He's still an executive to this day in the NBA. We had 4 or 5 Atlanta Braves players, including their top pitcher, Pat Jarvis, and others. Skip Carey, who became an iconic broadcaster in Atlanta sports, originally settled in Dunwoody North. It was just an amazing time with all of these people from all over the country. And it's such an idyllic experience because we had the community pool. My elementary school was built directly across the street from my front door. I basically, could get up, roll out of bed, comb my hair, and go right out the front door to school. And the big high school, Peachtree, where we all attended, was just catty corner to my house, right there in the same corridor, which led itself to a lot of temptation later on in my academic career, because it was so accessible just to kind of go out the back door and slip into the back parking lot, go down across the adjoining lawn, cross the street, and I was in my driveway. Too tempting. A lot of mornings when I just wasn't feeling it, I would bid my mom farewell about 5 to 8 before the bell rang, get to the parking lot, kind of lurk in the shadows, not going in, wait till I saw her car pull out about 8:20 for her to head to work, and I would make a beeline right back down the hill and was back in the sack for some more quality sleep before she even got out of sight. So not the best in terms of temptation for me, but became a bit of a character with my high school class, became a bit of a pain in the ass for the administrators, always trying to wrangle me up. But we had so much population explosion. There were so many people that the school just could not facilitate. They really didn't know who was coming or going in a lot of that time. And it was a lot more fun. I was not academically challenged. A lot of people at the reunion came up and said, I can't believe the things you write and the things and all the things you're involved in, because, I think they kind of had me sized up as just a total goof off, but it became easier for me to be motivated by trying to kind of beat the system, which at the time was completely out of their control. They had too many key people to account for and did not have the facilities. A second school was built right during that time. And by our 10th grade year in high school, we lost half our population, that they all shifted over to the school just 2 miles away, Dunwoody High School, which is still in place today. Peachtree has become a middle school. Unfortunately, our high school only went to about 1989. But I tell you all this because this was a gathering of so many of those people, most from my neighborhood, who were a lot of them at the parties we had, the big barbecues, the big holiday parties, and just seeing them periodically about every 10 years is always great. But I wanted to tell all of you, it's easy because a couple of my best friends, my 5 lifelong best friends were all from the Peachtree days. 2 of them were not in attendance at this weekend festivity, and it's a shame. They had both extremely legitimate reasons, but a lot of people over the years, and we've lost about 30 classmates in our class of close to 400. There was maybe 150 attendees this time. It was great. Again, it was an idyllic place to grow up at a time when the city was defining itself. We were helping as one of the leading suburbs to define it ourselves. I won't get in a lot of the Keefer stories of the shenanigans that we engaged in, but there wasn't a ball game or a concert. We couldn't go downtown and find a way to weasel our way in. We were just a bunch of little hustlers, never really had any money, but just became adept at really not missing anything going on in those days. And again, it was more of a challenge to sort of to beat the system than to comply and pay attention to things like geometry and other subjects, typing and different things. Now, I wish I would have paid attention in typing because, of course, who knew that this era of personal computing and whatnot was coming? But the bottom line is, as great as it was, and as much as I succeeded in kind of being a goof off, it didn't serve me well later in life. So that's another cautionary tale. If any young folks are listening, or if anybody wants to convey to their high school students, put your nose to the grindstone, hit the books, learn all you can, because it took me a long time as an adult to get out of the habit of just trying to, usurp the system and find an edge. And to some extent, I still do that today. It's just who I am and what I sort of built for myself. But the main thing I wanted to point out is it was a joyous weekend. I've given several shout outs on social media to the girls of my class, the female population. I mean, they all still look phenomenal. And I have such appreciation. They were the life of the party this weekend. The guys are all kind of subdued, the ones that are sticking around. As I mentioned, we've lost about 30 classmates to various disease and accidents and things that happen. And certainly all of them were extremely missed. But the females of our class really represented. They showed up. They were in great spirits. They were the life of the party, and they made one Kip Keefer feel really good because they kind of paid a lot of attention to me and responded to all of the things that we do here on TKR and in other media. And of course, I felt like it was a good opportunity to really kind of show out myself, because since the last gathering, and I still see my regular friends quite often getting over to Atlanta or meeting for golf trips or things of that nature. But since the last time to be involved with all of them, it was great because I have shed about a third of myself since that last gathering, which was about 10 years ago. I was up right around 270. And just at 6 feet, I always carried the bulk well, but another classmate of mine who is my valued irreplaceable partner on our terrestrial radio shows here locally on WJOX, Terry Quillian, who was a graduate from the same high school as myself. And we teamed up later in life to start our kind of media ventures here. She also will start this week appearing on our television show, The Starting Lineup. But Terry was here last year for the Georgia and Alabama game. We had a fabulous weekend in Tuscaloosa. She was just a rock star from the television show. People were recognizing her right and left, wanting to pose for pictures with her. She had no idea the impact that she was making. The funniest encounter, one guy walked up to us and said, "You're Terry Quillian. I heard your voice. I knew it right away." And she says, "Yes, I am." And he said, "Yeah, you work with Kip Keefer. I'm standing 12 inches away." And she goes, "Well, this is Kip Keefer, but he didn't know me from Adam, but he knew Terry Quillian." So that gives you an idea of the power and allure of a beautiful, talented woman like Terry. And, I have this unbelievable relationship with her. We finish each other's sentences. We have endless phone calls. We've been partners on this show. I had such a great weekend with the reunion and with the miracle of technology. I've got a unit called a Comrex where you can take it and connect to the internet and broadcast basically with studio quality from anywhere that you happen to be. I take it to Las Vegas all the time when I go visit my son and my grandchildren. I broadcast 2 shows. Saturday and Sunday was our debut weekend with Kip and Terry on the Game Time, which is on Saturday mornings at 8:00 local time here in Birmingham on WJOX. And it's on 9:00 the morning after our 9th season kicked off on Sunday. And what a joyous time with Terry, because she's not only my broadcast partner, but I couldn't love her anymore and have so much respect for her knowledge and enthusiasm. We've got college football shows. We've done political shows. She's worked in a couple presidential administrations. Her family comes from a long line of legislators and a former governor, lawyers, judges. She decided to go a different direction. She was and is a communications expert, and she's just a joy to work with. But when she left last year, I was a little melancholy. It came and went way too fast. I didn't want her to go back. She lives in Metro Houston. I wish she was back here. She lived in Birmingham the first year and a half when we got this venture started back in the late teens. And the bottom line is, I have really tried to enhance our relationship, but as things go, she's been in 2 marriages. She's fiercely independent, doesn't seem to want to spend much more time. And I don't know, I'm not trying to play the gloomy fiddle here, but I looked in the mirror on that day, and there's a point to all this. After she left the last day of September, I looked in the mirror on October 1st, and I kind of told myself, well, you just got to throw up your hands. You've done everything you could do. But then I looked at myself and I said, you're lying to yourself. You have not done everything you can do, because on that day, and I had, just by coincidence, a doctor's appointment for my annual physical 2 days later. When I stepped on the scale that day, I was 259 pounds. So I was down from 270 a couple of years before. I had tried a little bit to curtail just eating for entertainment, but I just made a decision that day that I was going to do whatever it took to get myself. And I just had a granddaughter on the way who I think you've probably listening to the program know was born in April. Aria Rain Keefer, the first female Keefer born since 1961. She's 4 months old now. I've got my other big buddy, Case's son, who you see on our shows, King, who is just a handful, but he's just turned 5 years old. I can't wait to go out there. I'll take my broadcast unit and be in Las Vegas weekend after next, and can't wait for that. But I just decided, I have not done everything I could do to both stick around and also to be the best Kip Keefer that I can be. So that day on October 1st, I started. Today, I'm happy to report and even more delighted to report that the reception I got from all these people that I've known for so many years was unbelievable, complimentary and positive. I bought a whole couple of new array of outfits. I bought the most decadent, ridiculous shoes I've ever owned, which cost me about a tenth of my net worth. But I was a big hit this weekend, and it was so gratifying that people were excited to see me and love my new look, because I weigh now, as of this morning, 194 pounds. So that's the first time I've been under 200 pounds since 1979. So I'm about a third of the man I used to be. And I'm proud to report that, because I encourage everybody. One, if you get a chance to go back and reconnect with people that help form who you are. And that's what I realized looking around that room. I remember different encounters at different times and different adventures and different things you get into. But these are the people that you grow up in your most formative years. And for me, again, it was the combination of the circumstances of all these people from all these places being in one spot, excuse me. But I've rambled on way too long about this. But the point is very clear. Stick around, see as much of your grandchildren's lives as you can, spend all the time you can with your family. I've got two sons. One is married, of course. The other is close to being engaged. Both of their selections of female partners are phenomenal people. Spend time with the family, folks. You're not too busy. You got to do that, and take the time to go back, participate in the reunions. I thought about as much as looking at the people that were there, of all the people that chose not to come. And a couple of my friends, as I said, had life circumstances, but this needs to be a priority. This is, I always find it odd, and people think I'm unique. That's saying, how can you have the same 5 best friends from all that time ago? Because I realized at that time how important these people were to me. And, you get reminded of that when you go back and you even see people that were not necessarily your closest friends. But I had so many people walk up and go, hey, I remember the time that, I was having a tough time. I'd lost my, they tell some story of some kindness that I exhibited for them at some point. And it's so gratifying to know that you were held in high regard, and now they're actually excited to see you and tell you about, their link to you and how, listening to shows and different things. And of course, I published a book. What does George Clooney have that I ain't got? I sold almost 2,000 copies, which was far short of what I needed for my beach house. But it occurs to me that probably half of those came from my high school crowd, who all told me how much they enjoyed the book. Since the last reunion 10 years ago, it came out. And anyway, it was great. And I would encourage all of you, don't blow off an opportunity to go and spend time with the people that you grew up with, because it's very special. And for me, between that and doing what I love on the radio 2 days in a row, out till the wee hours and up extremely early to do those shows, and doing them with Terry, another dear classmate of mine who I didn't really know in high school, but again, with all of the chaos and sanity of so many people, connecting with her later in life has been a wonderful thing. So I just real quick, I've already rambled on so long about this. Just real quick, a couple of headlines. I get up at 6:30 this morning. I turn on my television. It's Washington, D.C., but it should have been happening in a completely different place. Unbelievably, here is a big news conference on the steps of the ICE detention center in Washington. And the guy who is featured is none other than, and now I forgot his name, which is just unbelievable. I practiced it all morning so I wouldn't forget it. Abrego Garcia, who, of course, is the guy who was the Maryland father that was rounded up by ICE and sent to El Salvador. And all the Democrats just scream bloody murder. He didn't have his due process, and this is not fair, and he needs to be returned to America. Got some lower level judge to do it. He is speaking to a crowd of 150, and it looked like the second coming of Woodstock, the motley characters they had out there clapping and applauding as he spoke in Spanish, because he coming to this country illegally in 2011. He has been here now for 14 years. 14 years. This is a guy that they are saying so unjust. He's a great citizen of our country. The congressman from Maryland say, this guy is one of our constituents. He's not a constituent. He's a lawbreaker. He's here illegally. He's been here 14 years, and he's so disinterested in being an American that he hasn't even learned the language in 14 years. He's speaking Spanish. There has to be an interpreter. He's talking about, I might get sent out today because he's already been, and this lack of due process is total baloney. He's already been found to be here illegally by a immigration court in 2019 and upheld by an appeals judge. So he already had the order to get removed from the country, but he did not comply, and he's still here because we don't follow up. And under the Biden administration, or the shadow administration, as I call it, there was no effort at all to deport people that had been deemed to be sent away. In fact, they brought 12 million in more, completely on purpose, because they don't trust you, the American people, to support their socialist and far left policies. So they had to import new Americans, and they did it by the millions. And Donald Trump's biggest campaign promise was, we are going to get all these people out of this country that don't belong, that are ruining our big cities, that have sanctuary policies. Anyway, this guy is rallying this 150 people, talking about, even if I get sent out, keep fighting, keep being activists. And he's not saying this, he's saying it in Spanish. Keep fighting, keep being activists, and keep the love. It's almost bizarre. It should be an episode of The Twilight Zone. Rod Serling should come up and go, here's a man who is living in Washington illegally and is considered a Maryland citizen, although he is violating the Constitution of the United States. This guy is not a solid citizen. He's never had a real job. He's a member of the MS-13 gang. That's how he got rounded up, because he was with a bunch of them when ICE accosted them and deported them all. But he'd already been ruled a deportee 6 years before. Anyway, that's the Abrego Garcia story. He's MS-13. He's a human trafficker. Right now, he's facing charges of human smuggling of people from the border who had no identification. He is driving them across the country back up to the Washington, D.C. area for God knows what kind of assignments. A lot of young people, young girls. He had 8 people in his car. Not a single one had one piece of ID. He's a human smuggler, an MS-13 gang member, and he's already been ordered deported. And yet the Democrat Party and all of these rapscallions in Maryland are holding him up as some kind of a hero and the ultimate example of a guy that's being treated poorly by the big bad Trump administration. This guy is violating the law by being here. He's been here 14 years. He doesn't speak the language. He's never had a job. He also, in the midst of all this controversy, I'm sure you all remember, it surfaced that he had beaten his wife severely twice. So this guy's a wife beater, a gang member, and a human smuggler. And they are saying it's outrageous. They are more concerned with people like this guy instead of the Rachel Morin family, another actual Marylander, American mother of 5 who was brutally abducted while she was jogging, beaten, raped, and murdered in Maryland. These same officials did not even bother to attend her funeral, break off a phone call to her family, yet they're outraged when a fellow El Salvadorian, Abrego Garcia, is about to be deported. That's just unacceptable. And which side are you on? It's a pretty easy choice. I'm with Rachel Morin and Americans that are facing the dangers of these. I mean, just some of the worst people on the face of the earth that have been allowed to just stroll into our country. And I'm going to finish today, and I know Tony is probably aggravated with me because I'm running long, but I'm going to wrap it up today with a little quick correlation to what's happening in the Golden State, which is now more like the Rust State because all the shine is off California, which, of course, in the 1840s was the site of discovery of gold. Horace Greeley, a big newspaper publisher at the time, put a big headline on his New York paper, "Go West, young man," and people did in droves. California became kind of the crown jewel of America. It's not that anymore. There was a 1960s sitcom. Some of you are probably old enough to remember. Maybe some of the others that are listening have seen reruns, but it was called The Beverly Hillbillies, and it was a story about the Clampett family. And I'm going to, I won't really sing it. I'll just kind of word it, but the jingle was hilarious. And I want to compare that with what's happening now, 60 years later, along the same line, but a completely different direction. So here's the premise. The jingle of the theme song of the show tells you just about everything you know. Want to tell you a story about a man named Jed, a poor mountaineer, barely kept his family fed. And then one day he was shooting at some food, and up through the ground come a bubbling crude oil, that is, black gold, Texas tea. Well, the first thing you know, old Jed's a millionaire. The kid folks said, "Jed, move away from there." Said, "California is the place you ought to be." So they loaded up the truck and they moved to Beverly Hills, that is, swimming pools, movie stars. So that was the dream. Jed became a millionaire, bought a mansion in Beverly Hills, moved the Beverly Hillbillies, Granny, his nephew Jethro, and his daughter Ellie. And for about 5 or 6 years, classic television, the Beverly Hillbillies tried to interact into California society. All right, fast forward 60 years from the Clampetts going to LA. We have another move going on involving the two states that the Clampetts were involved with, Tennessee to California, but this time it's the other direction. And here's my little version of that jingle for this modern day story that's completely the opposite 60 years later. In-N-Out Burger, a multi-million-dollar company, but they are based in California, lunacy, facing taxes, regulations, and bankruptcy. They loaded up the headquarters and moved to Tennessee. No state taxes, no restrictions, country music stars. So In-N-Out Burger, which is just a huge success. I know people when they go to California, go out west to Nevada, out west to Arizona, In-N-Out Burgers on every corner. They are just a hugely successful business. Their executives, their corporate leaders said enough. The taxes are ridiculous. All of these regulations, the cost to do our business here is absolutely outlandish. So now just the opposite of the Clampetts, where, Jed moved away from there. In-N-Out Burger moved away from California to Jed's homeland of Tennessee. And I think it's a great thing to leave you on, because the correlation is just too delicious to pass up. And the burgers are pretty damn good too. All of us on the eastern part of the country have never had exposure to In-N-Out burgers because it's been strictly a Western situation. And now, coming to a suburb near you, with In-N-Out being based in Tennessee, In-N-Out Burgers has finally made a good choice and gotten the hell out of the hell hole that has become California. That's all I've got this week. Some things to think about, but I certainly enjoyed, as I always do, getting with you all. Pardon me for my pretty rough renditions of those two jingles, but I think they probably drove the point home, and that's the whole idea of the exercise. I'm Kip Keefer. Have a fantastic week, everybody. We will see you again very soon, 1 week from today, when we gather and have another session of What You Need to Know.
This has been a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio.